can I try again? I'm like losing.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the 90-minute mark.
You're okay, baby. You're okay. Deep breath. You come back to center, okay? Take a sip of whatever's near you. Have a crunch of your snack. We'll come back online.
Okay.
Your hair looks great.
Thank you. That's all that matters.
It is.
I hate this thing. It's like an adult sippy cup. I'm like, I fucking hate it. Welcome back, guys, for another episode of HAMYAW. And this episode is actually a bonus episode of HAMYAW and Friends with none other than the legendary Maggie Frank Hsu, where we want to talk about why selling sucks so much when you're a woman. I think we have a lot to talk about here about how women are socialized, about how our culture encourages us to be not pushy and accommodating and all of these things. But this is just a fantastic conversation that we hit record on after the last episode wrapped. So we wanted to share it with you guys. Let's dive in.
So we were talking about how women feel like they need to accommodate others and how that affects how we sell and how we promote and the way we come off in our copy. And I think that this fear of inconveniencing others is something that we should talk about. I'll dive into what we were talking about with, you were just saying in email, we don't want to annoy people. And I will share that I had a friend recently actually who was like, this email feels like you're trying to sell me on HAMYAW. And Hillary and I were talking about it and we were like, yeah, that's precisely what I'm doing. And so like, one, that tells me I probably did a good job because you should never feel like you're being sold. Here's the thing. This is what I'm getting at. When you're not the market, it's always going to feel like a sales pitch. When you're the market, it will feel seamless. So like if I have hair that looks disgusting and you sell a blowout bar, I am going to want what you have if I view my hair as a problem. That's always going to be something that's interesting to me. If I don't view my hair as a problem and you try and sell me on blowouts, I'm going to be like, that's really annoying. So like part of the reframe we have to make is that your pitch doesn't feel like a pitch to the market that needs it. And you have to have that like tunnel vision that the person that you're talking to is reading this, which is why you want to come at it with respect and still have, you know, generosity and value add in your emails and the way you make your pitch, but you still need to be making a pitch to them to get them to take action because people are lazy. And I think the way that we socialize women in this country is antithetical to what we need them to do if they are going to succeed in business.
Totally.
You do have to have an element of, it's going to be inconvenient for some people. It's going to come off as annoying to some people. There are going to be very real consequences to you looking pushy, or what are those like terrible words everyone says? Assertive, aggressive, intimidating.
Bossy, bitchy.
Bossy, right.
I take all these as compliments at this stage in my career, so it's very much like, oh, perfect. You think I'm that?
Graduated to that. Like, no one started that way. Like, now I hear it and
not
I'm like,
at all.
You meant executive leadership skills. It's fine. I know what you meant. But in the beginning, we internalize that stuff and we're like, oh no, I'm going to offend someone. Like the one thing I have learned from studying under the people I've studied under is that like, you do need an element of divisiveness. Like people need to not like you. If everyone likes you, then you're doing a really bad job at what you're trying to do.
You're not taking risks. You're not selling. Like you're not doing a lot of things. I think that's so important for us to remember as well.
But one thing that you kind of touched on and then jumped off of, Margo, is like, I think that what I see or the way that I frame it and that I've seen it over and over in my clients is like not feeling entitled to having a point of view. What we sell, you know, is really like a way of doing things or, you know, helping someone with a problem, right? I see so much more in women, and particularly I've noticed this a lot more after becoming a mother among other mothers, that like there's just this erasure of, you know, that we just kind of feel like there's a pressure, an internal pressure, an external pressure, societal pressure, just to not have a point of view, to not have like something to say and something to sell, a product, you know, that is our thing that we created, that, you know, this is why it helps this type of person, that there's just like a lot of pressure. Yes, you know, there's this worry about bothering, but there's this even deeper thing about just not being entitled. There's a podcast that I used to really, really like. They don't do it anymore, but it was founded by two men. And I just thought like, it's just like some dumb idea. They were really smart and the podcast was really great. And I just felt like, wow, they just thought, I can say what it is, right? They don't, I mean, they're not gonna care. It's the podcast, Denzel Washington is the greatest actor of all time, period. And they talk about each Denzel Washington episode. And they talked about how he's a Black actor. They're both Black. So they talked about, you know, the implications of him being in different movies or being as big of a star as he is. And there were so many angles, right? But I just thought that's such a good idea. And there are so many women who would have been like, I don't know. I just felt like, wow, men just think, yeah, I'm entitled to do this. Let's go do this, right? And that's what you've done with HAMYAW too, in a way. But like, I think that women are less likely to just automatically feel entitled to be like, yeah, I have this great idea. I won't tell everybody about it. You want to know about this idea? Hey, everybody, you know? And I really think that is totally about misogyny and the way that women are socialized differently from men.
And pop culture. Like, we don't see a lot of, like, I've got a great idea, women in TV, movies, and even, like, you know, in the digital space. Like, women are in a lot of ways, like, supporting characters. And of course, we've got some great women-focused storylines going on. I saw Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I've also been watching that series on, it's pretty good. No spoilers. But there's also this series on Amazon Prime called The Boys. And I'm looking at these female characters, and I'm just like, oh my God. They're either dead because they're motivating these superheroes or the anti-superhero crew to like do the thing, or they're like constantly crying even though like they've had shitty lives because like that's how we're supposed to relate to them, or they're evil. Like there's not a lot of really productive female roles like in these films. It's a really sort of interesting thing how far, when you think about the Bloodshell test, when you think about movies and stuff that keep coming out, like we have come so far, but we still have so far to go. And I think that is partially like, I think, because I see a lot of parents now like encouraging their girls to like code and go into entrepreneurship. And there's a big push I know from every single mother I know about teaching their daughters to be ambitious and their boys to be respectful of women and all of this stuff. And I feel like this is the problem with women in sales is the problem with women in the world, which is the fact that we are still working on feeling worthy of making demands, of stealing the spotlight, of demanding what we came for.
And I'll tell you, Hillary, that as the mother of 2 young boys, I've heard more than once online and in person, other boy moms saying things like, oh, well, women saying things like, well, you know, now there's all this stuff for girls. What about boys? Like boys are so forgotten. And so I'm like, boys are like, you know, they're
that's the norm.
Mean and like everybody else is deviant and like, it really boggles my mind, and they really feel that. And I think that like, it just shows you like how challenging it is, because as soon as there's any kind of progress, people are like, oh, I don't like this. Like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This is different. And women, I think, play a big part in holding back progress sometimes because they don't have they're not like aware of the biases they have. Everything you said about pop culture, it's just women who are doing stuff like that, like the woman that does Fleabag, you know, they're like the exception that prove the rule. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, you see it, I mean, back to us, it's like kind of the same with selling. It's like, I think that women who are really, really succeeding a lot of times sell to other women, but there aren't that many crossover where it's just like, yeah, everybody's paying attention to her, everybody's following her.
I want to make a connection so people don't think we're doing like just blatant identity politics here of like, when we say, because like I worry about that sometimes, but like when we were talking about like benevolent sexism or misogyny, I'll give you a really like kind of silly example that's very real about how we internalize the wrong things about us that eventually end up affecting how you show up online, how you show up in your brand, and what you believe about yourself and your capabilities. So when I was little, I grew up in Houston and I really wanted to be an astronaut. So when Apollo 13 came out, it was like my favorite movie. I was obsessed with this movie and I was like obsessed with Jim Lovell and Tom Hanks. So like I did the thing that all little kids do where I like rented all of his movies because I was like chasing that feeling and like did everything. So cut to like 20 years later, my mom just says as an aside, as a compliment, like how she knew I had such character because the man I had a crush on was Tom Hanks and he's not attractive. And I was like, hold up, you thought I had a crush on Tom Hanks? And she was like, yeah, you were obsessed with him. I just thought, wow, I raised like such a great daughter. But like she chose the one with character. And I was like, I wanted to be Jim Lovell. Like,
yeah.
I wanted to be Tom Hanks. How did you miss that? And it led to like a really interesting conversation. But it reminded me of like those subtle things that happen along the way that we internalize, where it's like, I'm not allowed to want this. This is not for you. You've too big for your britches. You've reached past the point. Like, I'm trying to think about a movie about a female pilot that wasn't steeped in how she overcame adversity and systemic oppression, and like,
it doesn't exist.
Still able to be a mom, still able to be a wife. So she did all the things. Like, there isn't actually a storyline where the fact that you're a woman is left out. It doesn't exist. And so when we look at, you know, how you feel about sales, I know we're talking about bigger level things, but I want everyone to see the connection that like these bigger systemic problems are part of why it's hard to hit send on that email.
Yeah. And why it's so important that you do it, even if you're if it ends up in failure, or even if you mess up. I saw on Instagram the other day, someone said something like, you know, nobody's waiting for you to, I think you guys said this already, but it's like, nobody's waiting for you to do this stuff. Like, nobody's like what Margo said, like, nobody cares. Just like, do it. Like, cause nobody cares. Nobody cares if you don't do it. Nobody cares if you do. It's really your thing. It has to be your thing, you know? Yeah. And I think women really have a hard time claiming.
Yeah, and I think we just got to get comfortable with the reality that we are, in many respects, starting not from zero, but from a negative. Because when we are looking to sell and when we are looking to be out there in a bigger way, we have to reprogram our brains to understand the way we've been raised, the way we've been shaped by culture, the way we've been taught to anticipate, what other people have been taught to anticipate from us. It is a really tricky experience, which is why, especially in the women's space, entrepreneurship is the best form of personal development there is. You learn what kind of stuff you're made of without everything else bugging you down.
Yes, totally agree. I mean, I think like so few people recognize, but like, you know, I worked jobs for, you know, from the time I got out of school until 5 years ago. So I don't know, more than 10 years, and just kind of kept, what I felt was that like, if I could keep doing this, but I feel like I always kind of get stuck in the same thing. And I didn't really feel like I was going to figure out, I was going to really, you know, go to the next level or something, or blossom. And I think that part of it was me, you know, and taking responsibility for the ways I was limiting myself. But part of it is like where someone like me, you know, someone who's like a communications type of woman fits in a company. So yeah, I do think that entrepreneurship is the best form of personal development in that sense.
All right. So you guys, this has been a wonderful conversation on how gender and acculturation affects how you show up in business, how you sell, what your confidence level is, the things, the baseline for which we need to show up and do the work, and how to overcome those things. Anyway, Maggie, thank you for inviting us to have this conversation. And thank you for being on this bonus episode. I am Margo Aaron.
And I'm Hillary Weiss.
And this is
Maggie.
Oh, Maggie Frank Hsu. I'm Maggie Frank Hsu.
And this is HAMYAW and Friends, HAMYAW AF. If you like this episode, please like it below, comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Bye for now.